Arise, my soul, remember this. He took my sin, He buried it. No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. No, I won't boast, but in the cross that saved my soul. All else is lost. The grip of fear has no hold on me. So where, oh death, where is your sting? No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. All of this for your glory. Oh, all of this for your glory. Oh, all of this for your glory. Oh, all of this for your glory.
Hi guys, my name is Brista and a very warm welcome to TC Youth. If you're new here, we're so excited to have you as a part of our family. We're about to go through some announcements, so please stay with us so you know how to get plugged in. First, we got Friday Fuel every week at 8 p.m. It's where we play games, watch movies, or have Instagram lives. So make sure to follow our Instagram account at thecollective.youth to stay updated. We hope you join the fun this Friday. Next, we've got our online devos happening throughout the week. Devotionals are ways that we can study the Bible with our tribe groups, talk, and update each other on what's been going on. For more info, make sure to message your tribe leaders, and if you're not a part of a tribe yet, then make sure to message us in the chats and or in our Zoom room. You can even DM us on Instagram to get connected. The last announcement is that we have these TC Youth services every week at the same time and same link. Also, come hang out with us after service to play some games and hang out. That's all for the announcement. Now let's head into the sermon.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, TC Youth family. Welcome back to another TC Youth online experience. And hey, look, I'm excited that you are joining us today. Whether you are right now, if you are in the Zoom chat or on the YouTube page watching live, or we've seen people watch our videos later in the week. Look, if you're watching later in the week, I'm happy that you do that. But I'm also telling you, you gotta come hang out with us at our 10 a.m. Sunday service, y'all. It's a lot of fun. We love to hang out and have a lot of fun. But look, if you're in the Zoom chat, type, "What's up, Jordan?" Or not the Zoom chat, I mean the YouTube chat. Type, "What's up, Jordan?" Okay, so anyways, guys, we are on week 1 of a new series that we're kicking off today called Habits. Come on, everyone type habits in the chat. HABITS. BTS. Type habits in the chat. And so, look, today in this series, as we kick this off, we're going to be talking about healthy habits in our spirituality. We're not necessarily talking about habits of like, oh, time management. Oh, we need to work on our emotional management, like homework habits. You know, we're not talking about that habits. We're talking about spiritual habits related to our relationship with Jesus. Because how many of you guys know habits is kind of like this idea of something that compounds or builds over time, right? Like, let's say you want to build a habit of saving money. Well, you don't do that when you're 30 or 35 and say, okay, I'm gonna save $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 right now. What usually has to happen is you have to create this habit of saying, okay, I'm gonna put away this amount of money, and it's this little thing that becomes something that builds over time, and it becomes a habit. Let's talk about dreams for a bit, right? So maybe some of you guys have had dreams of being an artist, dreams of being a singer, dreams of being a doctor, dreams of being an activist, and all these things, right? People have dreams. You know, for me, I had a lot of different dreams or desires or passions. One of those things was, you know, for a while I had a passion to be like on the worship team. And so I remember I wanted to, well, not just be on the worship team. I think I wanted to be a singer. You know, I always wanted to be a singer. I as a Filipino, I grew up seeing so many Filipinos singing, and I thought it's only my natural destiny to be a singer. And so when I would see all these Filipinos on YouTube, like AJ Raphael and like all these guys, I would think, oh, I have to be like these guys. So I would try to take singing lessons. I'd learn guitar, and I try to translate this into worship. And you know what's funny is over time, I took the right steps right away into wanting to be a singer, be a YouTube star, be someone that could sing in the worship team. And as I started to do that, you know what happened was little things would happen where I'd get distracted. You know, I'd get distracted and maybe something came up and I had to, instead of doing singing lessons or practicing my vocal exercises with my diaphragm, I got distracted by another thing, a homework thing. I got busy. And so little by little, instead of building a habit towards this dream of being a singer, I kind of let life distract me. And then over time, I kind of let go of the idea of like, oh yeah, you know, maybe singing is not going to be my thing. Let me do another thing. You know, I was really into coding. I love getting into coding and well, not into coding, but I always wanted to design like a game. You know, I always wanted to design like things on the next biggest app on the App Store, or the iTunes Store, the Google Store, you know? And so I want to design apps. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay, I want to learn this. And so instead of making a habit of setting a timeline to say, okay, I'm going to learn coding, make a habit for learning coding like 1 hour a day or something. Like I just started and then I stopped. You know, and how many of us, like when we have a desire, a dream, or goal, and we start to put it into place, when it kind of escapes it, when it kind of leaves our eyesight of saying, okay, I want to do this. I have this idea. I'm looking at it right now. I'm making it happen. When we have this idea and it gets out of our sight, it's really true that something happens that when things are out of sight, they become out of mind. Things are out of sight, they become out of mind. And a lot of that can relate in our way of how we relate to Jesus and our relationship with Christ. You know, if we don't build this foundation of constantly locking eyes and spending time with Jesus and looking at him, then over time, it's going to be the same thing. He's going to be out of sight and eventually out of mind. I mean, I'll even equate this to my relationship and our relationships. A lot of us, we have relationships with friends and family and people. And because of COVID, we've entered the situation where because we don't see them all the time, because we don't talk to them all the time, because we don't engage with them all the time, they become out of sight and out of mind. But if you want to build relationships with people, just like if I need to build a relationship with my fiance, soon-to-be future wife, I have to constantly say, hey, I have to constantly keep her in my sight, so I keep her in my mind, and so I have to create practical steps of what that looks like. And so when it comes to this relationship with God, you know, it's so interesting that throughout the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we have these people that were the Pharisees. And see, the Pharisees at the time, they questioned Jesus and they said, well, Jesus, you know, we studied at their time, we'll consider it their Bible. They studied their Bible and the name of that Bible is called the Torah. And so they studied that and they understood God's law in and out. They to become a Pharisee, you had to memorize all of the Old Testament, all of the law, there's all these religious statutes to it, right? And so the Pharisees are then questioning Jesus and they're like, Jesus, well, what's the greatest commandment or what's the best commandment that we should follow? And see, it's interesting because Jesus, he doesn't tell them like, oh, well, it's you have to, obey your parents, or he doesn't say like, oh, you have to read the Bible 20 times a day, because these Pharisees were like, well, we want to know that we've been doing the right thing. I want to be validated for the right thing. But Jesus says this in Mark chapter 12, and it's in verse 30. And he says this, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. That is the greatest commandment that we could do. And then he goes on and he says the second thing, the next one's love your neighbor as yourself. But knowing this, it's so interesting because Jesus, he kind of comes in and he gives us what we should do. We need to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, strength, right? But how many of us know, it's almost like when people say, hey, let's take over the world. And then you're like, yeah, let's do it. But then, how are we supposed to do that? I think Jesus gave this really broad principle of saying, hey, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so he gives us this big what, but he doesn't give us a how. How are we supposed to do that? What does that look like? How am I supposed to go about this? And so picture this. Imagine you're one of Jesus' followers. And so Jesus is coming in and he's saying, hey, love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But as he's saying this because he knows that he's eventually going to die. So imagine that God was literally physically in front of you. Then he's telling you that you need to love him with all your heart, soul, and blah, blah, blah. But he's telling you this physically now in the moment, and then he's going to become invisible later. This is a hard principle to wrap our minds around. And then imagine that he's telling us who follow him every day to say, hey, now I want you who cannot see me or look at me to love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so we enter this place where we're in this spiritual conundrum, the spiritual sense of polarities where we're like, okay, we get this is the idea, but we're here and we feel far from the idea. What do we do to walk in this path towards this idea? What do we do? So I love, this is what it says in John 15, verse 1 to 5. I mean, it's going to lead into some practical things. So John 15, verse 1 to 5. And this is where Jesus, he's talking about being a gardener and we're going to be these branches attached to the vine and all this. It's going to get in the language here, okay? So it says this in John chapter 15, verse 1. And it says, I am the vine. Jesus, he's the vine. Think about a tree. And so I am the vine and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. While every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, so that it will bear even more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken in you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, that's the key in verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So let me read verse 5 one more time. Jesus says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you think about a rose, for example, you think about a rose. And roses, not only do they have thorns and the flower looks beautiful, but they also have like their petals that stick out, and we can call those branches. And the vine is the main stem. Well, guess what? As soon as that leaf or that little petal gets cut off from the vine or the main stem, what happens? It dies. Over time, it dies. And so for us, like Jesus is literally saying, like, I am like the power outlet. Or I'm like the power outlet and you're the plug. And if you plug into me, you're going to have the power that you need to live life. And so when we connect all these things together, connecting it from, okay, loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then Jesus is the vine or Jesus is the power outlet, and we're the plug. How do we connect this then? So the biggest thing is that we got to understand this, that God always wants to be close to us. In all reality, it's never that God's far from us. Sometimes it's that we're far from God. Sometimes in what far from God looks like is that we're just not looking in God's direction, right? Out of sight and out of mind. But the Bible says clearly that God is close to those who call upon him. So God's always near us at every situation and time of our life. But then when it comes to walking this thing out, well, how do we remain in God? How do we remain in the situation as he remains in us? right? Check this out. Remember, let's go back to this whole word image of the petal and the petal and the rose stem, right? The rose stem doesn't move. It's the petal that detaches. And so we can reattach a petal, graft it back in to the vine. And so if it's never God leaves us, but we leave God, well, how do we remain in God as he remains in us? Well, I want to give just some practical things, right? Because again, if we relate this to a relationship with God and a relationship with people, it's the same thing. If we lose sight of our relationships with our friends, the people around us, with my fiance, my future wife, Angela, if I lose sight of her, lose sight of spending time with her, then I'm gonna eventually lose sight of habits or of creating these habits towards consistently making time for her, getting to know her. So as we kick off this habit series, it's about getting to know God in the relational context. And so these are just some things that we can start doing going forward with connecting with God. Even though he's invisible, even though we can't see him, connecting with him now spiritually and emotionally with God, that we might not see him, but we can feel him, we can encounter him. These are some ways that we can do it. I want to challenge you to do this. We're gonna start a tribe challenge that we can start doing with our CGs, where we can say, hey, let's do this. Maybe 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day. Anyone could do something for 15 minutes. You're on your phone for 15 minutes. You're looking up on YouTube blankly. Like some of you guys look at videos just for background noise, right? Like for 15 minutes a day, we want to challenge everyone to say, hey, start building these habits towards saying, hey, for 15 minutes a day, I want to spend time with God. Now, don't think about a checkbox. Don't think about this as a rule. Don't look at this as if you fail, God's going to be mad at you. Like, you guys understand something. I don't always talk to Angela, my wife, every day, my future wife, every day. Like, I do talk to her every day, but I don't always spend like hours and hours talking to her. I talk to her sometimes like, oh, babe, it's a long day. How was your day? 10, 15 minutes later. Okay, baby, I got to sleep. Okay, bye, babe. See you tomorrow. Sometimes it's like that. You know, and so when it comes to a relationship with God, like, we just got to think practically, hey, what can 15 minutes a day look like? What can 5 minutes a day look like? Right? So I want to challenge you with this. Your challenge, how about instead of 15 minutes, I'm going to change the challenge. The challenge is this. I want you to spend 5 minutes a day, at least 5, spending time with God. 5 minutes a day, spending time with God. Just you and him. Or this can also be done in the context of a tribe. If you're with your tribe. And these are some things that you could do. Challenge number 1, or to-dos that you could try to do. Applications. Application number 1, create a Spotify playlist of worship music, where you either play the worship music in the background, or maybe you use the worship music when you're on a run, or maybe you just need a 5-minute break and you say, hey, I feel really stressed out with school, really stressed out with life, my extracurricular activities, my parents, all this stuff, and or maybe a relationship, all that, and I just need a 5-minute mental break. 5-minute mental break, put on that worship music. Boom. Let yourself get centered with Christ again, right? Here we go. Here's another one. Go for a walk, and in that walk or in that run or something, have a moment where you're having internal dialogue with God, questioning things. Oh, God, I'm really stressed out about this. God, I'm really angry about this. God, I feel my emotions are all over the place about this. God, when my parents said this. That's you spending time with God. Here's another thing. Write down some prayers, some thoughts, make a journal, like write down things that are going on in your heart, dreams, aspirations. Write those things down. Write down habits and take time to actually write down a prayer. Think about it. Here's another one. You know, we do this in our tribes. We do our devotions together. Every series that we do here comes with a devotional. Read that devotion with your tribe or on your own. Read that on your own. Another thing that you could do outside of reading devotions, ask a leader to pray for you. Say, hey, I'm going through something. Hey, can you pray for me? Hey, can you send me just some encouragement? Right? These are just some practical things. If you do 5 minutes a day, I'm telling you, what we're doing now is we're building a habit. And this habit can compound over time. And I'm telling you guys, I've had to build this habit when I was about your guys' age of saying, hey, in tough seasons, I need to come to Christ. Because that's carried with me in the times that I've wanted to quit. There's times that I've wanted, even as a youth pastor, I've felt like I've wanted to quit being a pastor sometimes. I've wanted to quit working on my relationship sometimes because life isn't easy. But you know what helped me through all of this is the habit of building my relationship with God in the little things. All those little habits compounded over time and it equated into a big wave of just God showing up. Me building my relationship with God. Building a relationship with God. So I want us to end with that challenge. Remember this. Guys, we want to build a relationship with God. It starts with building a habit of getting to know him. Building a relationship. You don't build relationships with people by saying, hey, I met you once. Okay, awesome. Shake hands. Bye. I know you now. It's a habit of building a relationship. So with that said, let's close in some prayer. God, I just want to pray for everyone that tuned in right now. God, we know that habits are healthy. Well, healthy habits are healthy. Sometimes we can have unhealthy habits, but healthy habits are healthy and they're good for us. And so I pray for everyone here that we don't think of doing devotions or praying as another checkbox we add to our list of things we need to do, but we can look at it as a moment that when we get to know you and experience you, it grows us. It challenges us. It expands us. You have great things in store for us, but we're only going to know that if we get to know you. So God, I pray this for everyone that's watching right now, that we get to know you more and more. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Awesome. Hey, look, TC fam, we're about to jump into tribes. If you're not into our tribes yet, check out the Zoom info below. You got to join us because we're a family here and you are a part of this family. So we love you and we'll see you next week.